JDS live. We are live here in Winter Haven, Florida. Your boy's on a little quick getaway, but I'm going to tell you right now, tonight is going to be an amazing, powerful word that's going to help you on your journey. If you don't already know, my name is Justin Soltanos, and my primary purpose of doing these live streams is to bring you encouragement and hope on your journey. So please stay tuned in to the very end. I'm telling you, if you are in a bad situation, if you're in a jam, if you feel stuck, this is going to be the word for you. So good to see everybody here in the house. Good to see Mandy. Good to see Carnetta. Good to see Amy. Good to see Bob. Continue to hit that share button because we are live. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of people that need to hear this word. And tonight we're talking about how God restored it all in my life. And the title is going from bedridden to boss. Now, I got to be honest with you. I was hesitant to post this title because I know how people kind of get, oh my goodness, that sounds prideful, this and the other. But my mentor and me have been discussing this, and he really feels I need to start telling you guys a little bit more about my business and what I do, so you can be encouraged where you're at now. Because a lot of people may be struggling like with their health or like financially or whatever the case is. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be part of my testimony. And I'm also going to share some business tips that may help you out with where you're at now at the very end of this live stream. So good to see my brother here in the house. Salty's in the house. Lawrence is in the house. Continue to hit that share button because like I said, we are live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And your boy is in Winter Haven, Florida, getting ready to bring you an encouraging word that's going to help you out on your journey. So once again, before we get started, it's not a cocky thing. It's not a pride thing. It's an attention getter to get your attention. That's maybe why you're here, about how I went from being bedridden to being a boss, okay? And I don't mean like a boss like telling everybody what to do, but once again, you'll hear more about that by the end of this message. You know, before I get into the message, whenever I start a live stream, I'm always in worship. And today I was listening to a song. I never really mentioned this stuff, but I was listening to Elevation Worship, the song More Than Able. And it was just so encouraging because if you're in a jam right now, or you feel stuck, or you're sick, or you're bedridden, or you have a disease, whatever the case is, it basically says, you're not done with me yet. There is so much more to my story. Good to see Cassandra. Good to see everybody pouring here in the house. Continue to hit that share button and also comment here on JDS Live. But the bottom line is if you are here, just remember, God is not done with you. He's not done with the story. I don't care what kind of position you're in. I don't care if you're broke. I don't care if you feel like you're on death's door. This message is going to be extremely encouraging to you. And I'm going to share more about how I physically felt and just a little bit more about the journey. But before I get into that, I want to kind of tell you about where I was before I got bedridden and before I was ill. Growing up, my dad used to always tell me, Justin, everything you touch turns to gold. When I was younger, he made these little $100 bills. He printed out some paper, put my face on it, and made a bunch of them. And I'll never forget that. Like, he truly believed like I was going to do something, I guess, good when it comes to like business someday. And he was always telling me he was proud of me, this and the other. But the bottom line is he really believed that everything I touched turned to gold. And when I was younger, I started a lawn service, and this lawn service ended up growing. And before you know it, I delegated it to a friend, and this friend ended up running it, and it became successful. And then from there, I started working for a company called Nationwide Travel. I became their top sales agent. And then after that, I got into residential real estate, and I did extremely well in that too. And I started buying, fixing, and flipping houses. And I thought I was on top of the mountain. I thought I was the big boss that had everything going on. A lot of things were going my way. And in 2010, you guys have heard it before, one thing happened, the next thing happened, and I was sick. I was basically on death's door. And I really want to tell you guys some of these symptoms that I was experiencing, because maybe right now you're sick, maybe you're ill, and you're like, man, I'm dealing with this, or I'm dealing with that, or maybe you're not sick, which is even better, because you'll be able to stay tuned into the very end of this and really understand like what you need to do to put yourself in a better position if you feel like you're not where you need to be right now. But I want to go over some of the symptoms real quick. The very first symptom, you guys can write these down in the comments below if you guys wouldn't mind, so people can kind of see. what kind of symptoms I was experiencing. If you're a fast typer, you got to get ready because I had a lot of symptoms. I'm not going to give you all of them, but basically I had over 50 symptoms going on in my body, okay? And that is what led me to being bedridden. The very first symptom that I remember was I had a lot of body muscle twitches. Some people get body twitches just in their eye. Some people just get on their arms, their feet. I had them all over my body. There was not a place in my body where I did not have twitches from head to toe. The next one was I was very unstable when I was walking. I was off balance. I started having head pressure. I started having these fasciculations, which are even worse than twitches. I started having crawling sensations. I started having tingling sensations. I started having burning sensations. I started having all these different neurological problems. I had problems with my coordination, problems with my eyes, problems with my tongue. Light used to affect me when I go into grocery stores. It still does from time to time, but I rebuke what I just said in Jesus' name. I have no problems, but the point is I had finger twitches, fatigue, head pressure, numbness all over. Some people have like numbness in their fingers. I had it pretty much all over my face. I used to be able to scratch my face as hard as I wanted to, and my face was completely numb. Now it's not, in Jesus' name, thank God. My energy was horrible. Pins and needles, gait issues. My pupils were different sizes, and migraines, crawling sensations. And this is just a few of the symptoms that I was experiencing. So it went from being very successful to all of a sudden being shocked with all these different symptoms coming at once. And I'm not going to kind of tell you why I feel like they came and how they came. That's for a different live stream. But the point is it got me to a point to where I was completely bedridden. And thank God for my mom. My mom really helped me out. I went from being very successful to losing every dollar I had ever made. And by, her love and her heart for me, she helped me in many different situations. So big shout out to my mom. But doctors were basically giving me no hope, no kind of direction, not saying, hey, take this, do this. And if they were just trying to push some kind of pill. And one thing I did not do on my journey is I never, ever, ever took any medication. I never took any pills. I never took anything that they told me to take. I did it holistically with supplements, and I did it with a bunch of faith. So I went from being bedridden to being a boss, which is the title of the message tonight. But the truth of the matter is I got to a point to where I started to plan my death. This is a true story. I started thinking about 3 weeks out in advance, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to die probably about a month out. And I started thinking about things that I wanted to do before I was going to die. And that's kind of how bad it got. But, I was watching TBN one night, Trinity Broadcast Network, and I'll never forget it. Daryl Strawberry was telling his testimony about how he felt like he was going to die. And I kind of just was inside the bed. I was sad. I was depressed. I was fearful. The symptoms were acting up. And I'll never forget, he said to the camera, he said, listen, he goes, if there's somebody out there that feels like they want to give up, he's like, my encouragement to you is don't give up. God is still on the throne. He said, don't give up. So right now, one thing I want to tell you, if you're going through a hard time, or if you're in a mess, or if you're sick, or if you're down, or if you're broke, or if you're hurting, my encouragement right off the bat is just don't give up. Because if I would have gave in to all the different voices were happening in my head and okay, you should give up, or the bad thoughts, because I didn't really have my thoughts together at that point in time, it would have been over. I was completely hopeless. So fast forward a little bit later, my faith started to build as I was listening to a lot of faith-based messages. And what happened was my faith started to arise, and I was like, man, I'm never going to be able to provide for myself like I was before. I'm not as competent as I was before. I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to interact with people. I'm not able to engage. I used to be very charismatic. I used to always talk to everybody. And then before you know it, that was completely, I felt like it was gone. And I felt like I wasn't able to be in groups or social settings. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to make money. So I started to really think, and I was like, Lord, with all the technology out there today, this is kind of before online businesses became a big thing like they are today. I started thinking, I'm like, there's got to be a way that I can make some kind of business that will help me to provide or get some money or get me back and going in the right direction. So I started to research, instead of my symptoms and my sickness and what I was feeling, I started really looking into what I can do to really like start making money. And then it became a humongous distraction for what I was feeling physically, which was a great thing. So I always had an idea. My idea is I always wanted to be able to work from anywhere. And once again, people are doing it nowadays, but they weren't doing it 7 to 10 years ago. This was not even heard of. Like people 7 to 10 years ago were showing up to buildings, brick and mortar, checking in, clocking out. So I was trying to develop something that was like, hey, listen, this isn't really happening a lot now, but I was like, you know what, we're going to make this happen. I really started to have faith and believe, even in my worst condition, 50 symptoms plus, that things were going to change and go in the right direction. And I'm not sure if you've ever been through a health challenge yourself, but you get to a point where you're like, I'm not able to do what I was able to do before, but I started to, like I said, to have some hope, and I started to become determined. I started to have this confidence that things were going to change. Please comment in the comments below if you've ever dealt with something like that. And not to mention, we're getting ready to go through some good information, and I really want you guys to kind of like pound it inside the comments so people can see when they jump on this stream what we are talking about. But how am I going to make a situation for myself to where I can provide with what I'm actually going through? That was the question I was asking myself. So I started thinking about it, I started praying about it, and I was like, it would be amazing to be able to work from anywhere, to be able to work from the beach, to be able to work from my phone. Like one day I'll get the strength to get up. At one point in time, I couldn't even lift a 1 pound weight. And then before you know it, I became stronger and stronger as I became better. But I want to give you 4 keys right now that are going to help you on your journey. If you're sick, if you're not sick, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, this is what worked for me. I believe if it worked for me, it will definitely work for you. Because people, when they think of boss, and Corey, my mentor, is going to knock me for this, but they think that a boss has got to wear like a suit and a tie and show up in a fancy clothes and, do all this kind of stuff. And I was going to do that tonight. I used to be the guy that dressed up and wore all kinds of nice stuff. And I'm not against that. And I definitely will again. But for me, I always saw boss as being something different. Like being able to, I wrote a short definition, is doing what you want, when you want, and how you want it, okay? Not being bound by endless responsibilities, okay? And I'm going to show you how this can once again help you on your journey if you are looking to put yourself in a better position financially. So the very first thing that I had to understand, okay, if I wanted to get myself out of the position I was in, is I had to have a vision. And I know I talk about this all the time, but this is where it really started. I started visualizing, I'm like, man, imagine being at the beach. Imagine being able to work from my phone. Or back then, I was still thinking I had to work from a laptop. But in time, I ended up building my business to where I didn't even need a laptop. I was basically working just from my phone and able to work at the beach. I was able to ground, get my sunshine, get my steps in, and do all the stuff that I'm still currently doing today. If you follow me on Instagram stories, you guys see me out there. You're like, oh man, he's just enjoying life. I'm out there working. I'm out there grinding. I'm out there hustling. I'm out there putting the work in. Because if you see me at the beach, most likely I am working. But the point is if you don't have a vision, according to Proverbs 29:18, it says, without a vision, people perish, okay? So I had this vision, and I started looking into it, and I started talking about it a little bit. I was talking to my mom about it. I was talking to my dad about it, and you guys have heard the story before. My dad started doubting me. He's like, Justin, this is not going to work. This is stupid. This is foolish. You got to get yourself strong. You got to get back out there and work. You got to get into real estate. You got to go start working for somebody. Whatever the case is, fill in the blank. He just did not want to see me in the house because he just did not believe it would be able to, happen. And if my mom is here right now, she can contest to this, and she will definitely agree that he was completely 1,000,000% against this, even to the point where I had to get away from him and get out of the house if I was going to follow this dream. So the very first thing you have to understand with whatever you're going through, if you want your situation to change, even right now, if you're not sick, but you want to do something else in your life, you have to have a vision. I started having a vision, and I knew what it looked like, and I knew what I believed in. So point number 2 is you need to write the vision down, okay? The Bible says, in Habakkuk 2:2, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision down and make it plain on tablets, that he that readeth may run to it. So what I did is I started in bed and I started writing these things down, started visualizing, and I started thinking like, okay, this is what it looks like. This is what I desire. As this is happening, I'm encouraging myself, listening to tons and tons of faith-based messages. I'm still sick in bed, over 50 symptoms. And the bottom line is I was like, listen, I can't give up. And I told myself, if I can get myself in a position to where I have the strength, I really believe this is going to happen even when everybody was doubting. So I wrote the vision down, clean as day. And I remember what it says in Proverbs 16:3. It says, commit to the Lord whatever you do and your plans will succeed. I was like, Lord, if I do this, like my commitment to you is I'm going to be obedient. I'm not going to go back to the same person I was before. And I would cry out to him like, Lord, please give me the strength. Please give me the abilities. Please, let these symptoms start to dissipate, because I really believe with everything you've shown me throughout this illness and sickness that I can get and do something big and take all the money that I'm making and help others, blah, 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 blah. But it didn't happen quickly, okay? Sometimes when we want something in life, it's like all of a sudden we want the microwave effect. We want it to happen now. And that was just not the case in my particular situation. So I just want you to really understand that you have to have, this vision before you start anything, and you have to write it down. It sounds like something you hear me say all the time, but hopefully with repetition, you're starting to really lock it in your mind and your heart and your subconscious, and you're actually implementing it. Because if your situation sucks right now and you have not even, wrote the vision down on a piece of paper, and you've been watching me for 5-6 years and your life is kind of like going in the wrong direction, you got a problem there. That's all I have to say. Which brings me to point number 3. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to encourage you to do something a little tough love. But point number 3 is the biggest key that I want to give you tonight. And I really believe this is something that we really have to understand. Point number 3 is I had to ask and I believed. Once again, ask and believe. When I was in school, I used to ask questions all the time. I was one of those annoying kids in class that was asking the teacher questions. That's exactly what I did with this particular situation. I started asking as many questions as possible because I was trying to see how this vision was going to become a reality. Am I going to be able to work from the beach? Am I going to be able to work from the phone? What has to happen? What is the business structure? What exactly am I trying to accomplish here? So I started asking a lot of questions to Google when it came to business, which I don't do that for health. But I was asking Google, asking people, and just started really praying. And God was giving me answers to be able to do what I am doing today. Inside the word, it says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you shall find, and knock and the door will be opened. You have to understand, if you're on here, if you want your situation to change, you have to ask and keep asking and ask and ask and ask. Some people say you just ask God once, then you let it go, and you don't say something ever again. I don't believe that. I've never seen that verse in scripture. If somebody can kind of show me that, I would love to be enlightened with that. But I asked and asked and asked, and God continued to keep on giving me the answers that I needed for every problem. You get paid in business to solve problems. And I looked at the problem that people were having, and I started figuring out solutions of what I had to do in order to solve their problem. So whenever you're trying to start a business, or you're in a business and it's not working, just figure out like, what questions do I need to be asking and what problems do I need to be solving? So I asked a lot of questions. I started seeking answers to problems. I was knocking on as many doors as possible. I was praying, and then I came across Matthew 21:22. It says, and I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that my Father will be glorified in the Son. And in John 14:13, it says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it shall be done for you. So I was asking God, Lord, I need an opportunity. I really want to do something that like hasn't been done, that I hadn't heard that been done. My dad was doubting me. People were doubting me. I'm like, this is something I believe that can happen. So going from bedridden to being a boss can happen when you start having a vision and you write it down and you start asking questions. I always talk about this verse, and I know it where I wear it out. And some people say like, it's taken out of context, but it's not, because I've actually read it in the Hebrew and the Greek, and I've researched the living Jabibis out of it. But Mark 11:24 says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. So I started receiving in my heart in my mind, in my spirit, with my eyes, when I was seeing the vision, that I was going to be able to work from wherever, however, and I was going to have a big team. People were going to, like my business was actually really big at one point in time, a couple years ago, and then I ended up kind of like tailoring it back because it was just too much. But when everybody doubted, I chose to believe. And that's what you have to do right now. Right now, if you're in a bad situation, if your life's not going the way that you desire to go, you have to choose to believe in order for it to change. Because there's a lot of doubting Thomases out there. There's a lot of haters. There's a lot of people that want to see you fall. There's a lot of people that don't want to see you succeed. Sometimes I feel like I don't even want to post stuff online because I just know people are going to receive it the wrong way or hate on it or this or that. But I'm tired of that crap. I know people right now that are very successful that busted their butt to get themselves in the position they're in, and by the grace of God they are, and they won't even show any of it because they're just afraid that people are going to pray against it and this and that. But I always pray Psalms 91 again, for me in my situation. But the point is you got to ask, believe, and receive if you desire to go from the bed to being the boss in your life. And you don't have to be the boss per se in business, but what I mean by that is having that crown of life like the Bible talks about to those that are obedient. Which brings me to the very last point. The very last point tonight on JDS Live is you have to learn to be intentional, okay? You have to be intentional with what you're doing. And I'm going to go through a lot of stuff. If somebody could be kind enough, we'll be out of here in the next 8 minutes, and write these down in the comments below. But you have to be intentional if you want to get out of the bed and become the boss, or just be kind of like, have like the freedom to do what you want to do in life. The first thing you have to remember is you got to get past the doubters, okay? Inside Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." You have to believe that you're going to have an expected end. An expected end. So right now, are you expecting defeat? Are you expecting to be broke? Are you expecting to be down and out? Are you expecting to be less than? Are you expecting, all these like negative things? If you are, that's going to be the direction you're going. Your heart and your mind are like a magnet. God shows it all over the Bible. So truly understand, in order for you to hit the target in your life, you got to be intentional with these things. And you really have to believe and get rid of all the haters and whatever they're saying and doubters. I mean, even my own father doubted me that I could pull this off, and rightfully so, because back then it wasn't a thing that people were doing. But you gotta have eyes of faith. And like I said, point number 1, have that faith. Point number 2, write it down. Point number 3, ask and believe. And then point number 4, you got to be intentional. Now I'm going to go through some things that are going to help you out. If you're an entrepreneur, if you have your own business, if you have your own company, if you have a store, whatever the case is, this is something that everybody can use. And if you don't have it, then you need to write these down for the future when you do have it. One thing, like I said, you have to ask a lot of questions. You can ask the questions, and remember that the answers are at your fingertips nowadays. It's easier than ever. It's easier than it's ever been. If you were to ask these questions even 7 years ago when I started, it wasn't as easy to find the answers. Nowadays, there's answers for every problem there is out there, which makes it a little bit more competitive because there's a lot of people trying to do it. But I'm just here to encourage you and understand that it doesn't matter if everybody's doing it. Your story is going to be different than everybody else's. If you truly believe and you have a vision and you write it down and you stick to it and you ask and believe and you become intentional. Good to see Corey here in the house. Thank God for my buddy Corey, man. Love him so much. He is an amazing person. I just want to give him honor tonight. My mom and everybody else, Cassandra, people that pour into me. I thank you guys. Stopping this message to let you guys know. Big shout out, 100%. Good to see Aunt Debbie here in the house too as well. Oh, Janice is in Cape Cod. Cool. Janice will be back next week, hopefully. So the fingers are the questions, or the solution are at our fingertips. And understand that whatever you're doing in life, hard work is required. Sometimes people see me out, and I know it's kind of like perception is reality, but they see me out there at the beach, they see me on the gram. Oh man, he has the easiest life in the world. There were times when I was getting out of the bed and going to the boss, as you want to call it, that I was busting butt, working sometimes up to 20 hours a day. I almost put myself back in the same rut. I was working 20 hours a day before I got sick, and then I went back to working that much after. But thank God I tailored it back, because it got to a point where I had 14 different major clients and things were just chaotic, and I started going down the drain. So you don't want to overload yourself too much, but remember, it's not going to just happen. It's going to require hard work. If you're going after something that nobody else is doing, you're going to have to put in what everybody else is not doing. So hard work is really important. Oh no. And then also my phone is acting up. 1 second. Putting systems in place is really, really important. If you plan on starting a business, you have to understand that you must put systems in place and learn to be good at delegation. Like delegating out tasks, delegate out this order and this order and this order. And a lot of people know how to do that, but do they really master that? You have to understand you can't be everywhere at once, and a boss doesn't do everything that workers should be doing. I got myself in a position to where everything was rolling like a freight train without me touching anything, and I was just collecting checks. Now that happened because I was in it. I was diligent. I was careful. I was putting in the time, the work, the effort, everything necessary. So it didn't happen overnight, but in time, God allowed me to be in that position to where I was just sitting back like a boss at the beach, collecting checks, and it's still pretty much in that position now. I got to put in a little work from time to time. And you never want to take your foot off the gas. One of my problems is I started taking my foot off the gas, and I wish to God I never did. So sometimes remember, like, you got to still put the foot on the gas even when things are going. But if it's growing so fast, learn to become a master delegator and always have systems in place. And like I've always preached and teach for like years and years and years, you have to adjust. You can't have the same system today and have it like, Corey was talking about this not so long ago. I'm like, man, I have the perfect system. But if things are not working, that means the system is not perfect anymore. It may have been perfect 2 or 3 years ago, but it may not be perfect now. So you have to constantly adjust, and grow, because people are adjusting. And the same work that you put in 2 years ago has to change now today, because once again, people are out there grinding like never before. Okay, another thing is you got to have that mindset, okay? You have to have a mindset of a winner. You can't let these doubters and haters and something stop you. And then also a couple other things is you have to remember, you have to think on purpose. If you're looking to get out of the bed and get in the game and actually run your life like a boss, you have to have a mindset of a winner. You have to speak victory. So many people today, and I fell victim to this 1,000 times before, but I'm getting better at it. They let certain situations, or somebody does this to them, or a relationship happen, or something happens to the relationship, and then all of a sudden it masters their day, masters their emotions, and brings them down. You got to get yourself into a position when you're a boss that you don't allow those things to affect you. And if they do affect you, take them in, deal with it quickly, and get back in the game. And remember also, like I've talked about before, when you are doing God's way or committed to God, stay obedient, because when you're obedient, it's going to continue to keep on bringing the blessings in your life. So I want to end with this, okay? I want to end with this. I told you guys I'm going to get you guys out of here in 30 minutes. In Joel 2:25, it says, I will restore the years the locusts have eaten away. For me, in my situation, it basically took over 10 years out of my life. And I really believe, looking back now, if I would have knew what I'm telling you to do tonight and I implemented it like quickly, I think it would have lasted maybe a year at best. And it sounds like, oh man, that sounds simpler, easier said than done. It's not really true. Like, I believe that whatever situation you're in, no matter what sickness, illness, condition, financial situation, if you implement what we talked about tonight, they're 4 easy keys, but these keys have to do with every position in life. And if you really understand, if God says, I will restore the years the locusts have eaten away, and you believe that and you receive that, things can change in your life a lot quicker. You don't have to lose a decade like I did. And then in Job 8:7, I like this verse. I actually heard somebody today say this actually on a sports network. It says, though thy beginning was small, yet thy latter end should greatly increase. Basically, in a different version, it says, though your beginning was small, yet your latter would increase abundantly. The point is right now, if like your beginning of your life has been kind of small, it's been kind of sucky, it's been kind of crappy, things have been going in the wrong direction, understand that that can change in an instant, and you can start going in the boss direction, if you want to call it that. You can start living that abundant life that God desires for you to live, abundant in all ways, not bound up with debt. This is, man, there's one more thing I actually want to go back to real quick, if I can get to my notes real quick, that I really want you guys to understand. If you are looking, this is one of the things, this is a major key. I have to go back to this because we talked about being intentional. Please remember this, and I never do this in a message, but this is just very, very important. Try to keep yourself out of debt, okay? Stay away from debt at all costs. Don't be the idiot that goes out and takes a $50,000 business loan to start a business that hasn't even generated $1 yet. A lot of people today use debt to start. Debt can be a good thing if you know how to leverage it in time and stuff like that. But understand that if you have no money and you're going to go take a loan out and you're not making money, debt is going to cripple you. So one of the ways that I'm able to do what I'm able to do, how I'm able to do it and have the freedom to be able to go places whenever I want to go to them, is because I tried to get away from debt. I started knocking down the debt that I had little by little by little by little by little. So be intentional with becoming debt free. Don't have a huge mortgage hanging over your head. If you got a small mortgage, it's not a big deal. But if you start living above your means and stuff like that, it's just going to screw you. That's just the facts. Understand that. And I know, like I said, I never go back to key messages or key points, but it came back to me. So don't overspend, especially if you don't have the money. And remember, God is able to change your situation around. I don't care where you're at, what you're going through, what's against you, what it looks like, what the medical report says. I gave you guys a clear understanding of kind of my situation. Over 55 symptoms going on in my body. Plus, there was actually some other stuff I thought about before, maybe even upward to like 70 symptoms at one point in time. But God is able to do immeasurably more than all that we can ask, think, hope, or imagine. But you have to, once again, have the vision, point number 1. Point number 2, write it down. Point number 3, ask and believe. And point number 4 is be intentional. Stop living this short life that we all have according to scripture. It's like a breath here for a second and then it's gone. Start, really take every day and try to win. Try to give God your best at whatever you're doing. And before you know it, you're going to become lucky, right? That's what the world calls it, lucky, but it's not luck. It's called being blessed. It's called being highly favored. So if you apply these 4 keys tonight and you stay away from debt and you work smarter, not harder, and you learn to delegate and you put systems in place and you build the dream team and you get the right clients and you stay away from stressful situations and you start staying focused and you start going after the target, all of a sudden things are going to change. You're going to get out of that bed and you are going to start living like a boss. I know it for sure. Once again, I'm not talking about boss pointing fingers and being a prick, right? Don't get me wrong. I've been a prick before as being a boss in time for sure, and thank God for God's grace and repentance. But I want to let you guys know, I believe your situation can turn around. I said the reason why I'm having this message tonight is to encourage you on your journey. So I'm going to get going here. We went a little bit over 30 minutes, but remember, every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to meet on JDS Live with an encouraging word to help you out on your journey. If you're not already connected with me on Instagram, please follow me at jds.ig. jds.ig. You can join our fitness group. It's amazing. It's fun. It really motivates you to become better each and every day. We have an awesome group of people. It continues to grow and grow and grow. And if you need any kind of help, or like if you're thinking about something, or if you have a question, you can always hit me up on Instagram too. And some people in the Old Testament lived for over 100 years. Yeah, they did. That's for sure. Actually, some people lived way over 100 years in the Old Testament. But God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Your boy Jay is going to get back at it. And like I said, next Thursday, we're coming with another powerful, encouraging word. And remember, if you're bedridden, get out of the bed and become a boss. Live your life like a boss, not a prick boss, but going in the right direction so you can help others. If you don't have enough for yourself, you're not going to be able to help others in the future, and you want to be able to help as many people as possible. So God bless you guys. I love you guys. Thanks so much for being a part of the most encouraging live stream online. If you wouldn't mind real quick, please give the video a big thumbs up, share it with a friend, comment in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And as always, please consider subscribing today. And don't forget to hit that bell button so you can receive up-to-date notifications when these videos are posted. God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your night.